focus on hitting your goals in every area of your business. Remember, the universe rewards the bold. A leader has to take the risks.
Well, thanks so much for hanging out with me, man. I'm excited about the conversation. This is Wealth on the Beach podcast. We are here, everybody, with Steven Rozenberg. Steven Rozenberg, international airline pilot, author, educator, speaker, real estate mogul. So we're going to be talking about, health, wealth, man. We're going to be talking about flying planes. We're going to be talking about everything today. So I'm very, very excited. What was the hardest thing, man, to becoming a pilot? I mean, that just seems crazy to me.
I would say the hardest thing is it's a lot of upfront work. I grew up in Southern California, born and raised, had to put myself through school. And there's a lot of political stuff you got to go through. It's a very small industry. You got to be smart and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, you got to follow the rules. And I learned that if you don't follow the rules, you can have a hard time getting through that world. So I love it. I love what I do. I love being a pilot. I also know it's a job. It could end at any moment. And so that's kind of what got me into real estate because of that fact. And so I love doing what I do as a job, but I also know it is a job. And no matter what I say, I can be let go, downsized, dismissed at any point in my career. So I'm very aware of that.
And so right now, when we're talking about flights and pandemic and COVID and all this other crap that's happened over this last couple of years, I mean, how has that affected you?
Well, I mean, as an airline as a whole, I mean, I fly a 787 international route. So I fly pretty long haul, big planes. So obviously the company is affected, like I said. And my first journey out of the airline industry was when I got a furlough notice after 9/11. So 20 years ago, right, almost to the day that, the world changed. And my world changed as well, because I realized that I was a small cog in a very, very big wheel. And it didn't matter what I thought, what I did, how hard I cried and pouted. Nobody cared. The business does what the business needs to do to protect the shareholders, which is that's their job. But I also realized that the allure of me believing an illusion of a safe, secure job will always be there for me was on me. That was my mistake. And I realized that. And so for the last 20 years, I've been working on myself, trying to make sure that I am in a better position. A lot of action, a lot of mistakes, a lot of learning, a lot of self-development on myself. I still do fly, but I also don't need it. And so I think that's the main difference.
So you enjoy flying, but you don't have to do it to survive anymore. And I mean, do airline pilots do pretty well though? I mean, what type of money can you make being an airline pilot?
I mean, I guess well is a relative term. I mean, you could make, anywhere from 150 to 500,000 a year. So I mean, again, it's all relative to what you determine as good. But you're probably sitting in the high twos, low threes as a pilot in general. That's obviously with the major airline and all that stuff. Everyone's different. All airlines are different. So that, how hard you want to work. I fly 2 times a month. I fly all over the world. I'll be in Santiago, Chile tomorrow. I'll be in London next week. I'll be in Tel Aviv the week after that. I love it. I love what I do because I love traveling. I love the ability that it gives me. And I love the fact that I don't need it. I have enough real estate and I have other things that I've done over the years. I mean, don't get me wrong. Nobody wants to lose that big of a paycheck. But I would be okay if they said, "Hey, Steve, thanks for playing, but we don't need you anymore." I would be okay.
So do you have a favorite place that you've traveled to after all these years traveling?
I used to do a route from Houston to Sydney, Australia, nonstop. And I really like Sydney. I spent a lot of time. I made a lot of friends there. I was doing a lot of business coaching down there as well. So I got to see a lot of the local flavor. So I really liked Australia. I really enjoyed that place. picturesque wise, I would say New Zealand or Germany is very pretty. I think every place has its own beauty. And, you know, depending on how you see it, the lens you see it in, you know, you can go to Sydney and go, oh, this is screwed up. They're on the wrong side of the road. They drink too much beer, that, you know, or you can go, man, this is cool. It's on the other side of the road. They drink a lot of beer. You know, it just depends on the lens you use to look at things.
And so are you, when you think about, like, you know, growing up, I mean, did you know you were going to be a pilot? I mean, did you know you were going to be like this world traveler? Was that a dream of yours from, you know, like your childhood?
You know, growing up, I always wanted to be a pilot, but I didn't understand. I didn't know anyone in the aviation industry. So I didn't know what they made. I didn't know how you even get into that world. I knew nothing about it. I just thought, looking up as a little kid, looking up at the sky and going, man, that would be cool. Like, I wonder where they go. Like, where are all these planes going? And I remember thinking to myself, you know, growing up in Los Angeles as a little kid, and I remember thinking to myself, how cool would it be to fly over the top of LA one day? And, you know, one of the first routes I did when I did that, I was going Houston to Honolulu. And, you know, we went right over the top of LA and just kept on going. And I'm thinking, man, that's, you know, and another dream was landing an airplane in Sydney, Australia. I always thought, how cool would that be? And I've done it. And, you know, I've been to every continent except Antarctica. I've been to probably almost every major city in the world, pretty close to it, or the ones you'd want to go to, at least, we'll say. I've seen some interesting stuff. I've seen some amazing sunrises, sunsets. I mean, just you see stuff that you don't get to see when you're engrossed in your own life. And I will say that getting to travel as much as I do and getting to see so many different parts of the world, to me, you realize what a great country we live in, because there's many places you can go to where it's not so great and you do not get treated the way that you think you should be. And you just realize the different perceptions of what we think is important that really is not, it's inconsequential to survival or family or things like that. And so some things we have right, some things we're way off on, I think, on our thought basis and how we act and how we do things. You know, just from seeing a mixture, you know, I'm just a fly on the wall for 2 days when I'll be in Santiago, Chile. I'll be there for 2 days. I'm in and I'm out. You know, I get to check out the city and then I'm gone. You know, so we have a different perspective than most people do.
No, I can really relate to that, because I've traveled a lot of different places around the world. And the truth is, every time I've done that, every time I've been to Europe, every time, you know, went to Africa, went to Thailand, all these different places, Brazil, and you think, you know, we got it pretty dang good in America. I mean, America is like the greatest country in the world to be able to go from nothing to something. Everybody has that same shot. Everybody has that same opportunity. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care your age. I don't care. I mean, I've seen people, I mean, all walks of life become hugely successful in this country. And what a blessing that we were born here, you know, and we get to travel out and check out other places, and that's kind of cool. But ultimately, we get to always come back and go to bed here if we want to, and that is beauty to me. And so grateful for that. Were you a good kid growing up, a bad kid growing up? What kind of kid were you?
Yeah, I mean, I was average. I didn't come from a broken home. I didn't come from a poor family. I mean, I came from a middle class. Both my parents worked. You know, I grew up in an area of Los Angeles that was probably, at the time, it was not the best. I went to East LA College. So now I think it's more trendy now and hip, but back then it was not. But it wasn't, you know, I mean, I was into sports. I played football. I was, you know, blue chip All-American in junior college. I did okay. So no, I was probably an average kid. I wasn't super smart. I wasn't exceptionally talented in anything. I mean, I just kind of did my thing. And the one thing I had that I always had was drive. I always have been a driven, and my whole family is that way, but I am I'm a very driven person. I built businesses, I've sold them. I've authored books, I coach, I mentor people. I mean, I don't stop. I don't have an off switch sometimes, which is not, to be full disclosure, I don't think that's always the best thing either. I think that could be a detriment too to people.
Did you have a first mentor?
I've had many mentors. I mean, I'm a big believer in self-development and coaching. I probably have, if I had to put a monetary number on it, I probably invested over $500,000 in myself in the last 20 years. And I think if you don't have a mentor, or a coach, you probably are operating at about half of your optimum efficiency in life and in happiness and anything, because you don't know what you don't know. And that's kind of what it, you look at professional coaches, Michael Jordan, the late Kobe Bryant, Tiger Woods, they all have professional coaches, right? They're the best in the world, but they have coaches. Which is the reason? Probably a combination. I think that a coach, a mentor, somebody who sees something can bring the best out of people.
And so do you remember though, was there somebody that influenced you? Like I could say for my own life, I was very fortunate, went into business at 21. Luckily for me, the guy that was mentoring me was one of the most successful people in the entire organization. So I was very lucky to get coached and mentored by one of the best in our business. And then on top of that, I really dove into a lot of Tony Robbins and learned how my brain operated, which was really helpful as a younger man. And then of course, like even guys like Tom Hopkins, taught me how to close, how to influence people. And so through the years, I've had a lot of different mentors, but those are kind of the first ones that really, I think, built my foundation of who I am today. So do you have anybody that
yeah, I do. I would say on a very rudimentary level, it is as simplistic as it sounds, was my high school football coach. He always was a big believer in, always, leave it on the field, like basically give it everything. Don't walk off with anything, and always give back. And I always donate back to my high school because of that. Cause I remember that, and it was like, it wasn't a well-to-do high school. So we got our pads and we got our shit when somebody would donate money. And so I always remember that. And, he would always say, never forget where you came from. And I just, something that resonated with me. Now, as I progressed through, I was trained by a gentleman named Marshall Silver, who was a hypnotist. And he teaches you mindset, very much Tony Robbins, that very same caliber. And Marshall had a very large impact on me on how I think and self-limiting beliefs, and why you make fun of someone, why you make fun of yourself, why you have this self-defeating thought process that we all have. And that was very instrumental. And I'm still friends with him to this day, and he still helps me when I need something. I'll call him. But he was probably one of the most influential people. Other people go like, oh, I didn't get anything from him. So I think the teacher appears when the student is ready. I think at that time I was ready for the message from him. Another gentleman, Brad Sugars, who owned a whole.
I just wanted to jump in just real quick. Marshall is actually, he actually came to my home and we did our podcast in the backyard. So if you get a chance, go just YouTube Daniel Alonzo Marshall Silver, and you can see the interview that I did. He was on the podcast, but oh my God, that dude is a total stud. We had one of my favorite, that still to this day is one of my favorite podcasts. I think I've done 150 so far. And that really is one of my favorite all-time podcasts. Marshall Silver, amazing dude. So go ahead, continue.
Yeah. And I've stayed at his house in Oceanside and Vegas. And to me, he's a great guy. If you want to learn about yourself, and if you're ready to accept them, like if you're ready to really, I tell people, don't ask if you don't want to know the answer. Marshall's the kind of guy that if you don't ask him if you don't want to know the answer of where you're having challenges, because he will figure it out and he will tell you. But yeah, another person, a gentleman named Brad Sugars, he owns Action Coach International. He was a mentor to me. He ended up becoming a business partner of mine in my last business that we ended up building and selling to a venture capital. So yeah, I learned a lot about business from Brad and leverage and scalability and thinking much bigger. I mean, I was having conversations with, we had a property management company, and through conversations with Brad, when I was doing some coaching and mentoring in Australia, next thing I know, I'm having conversations with the Malaysian government about our management company. And I'm like thinking to myself, how does this even happen? Like I'm having conversations about a property management company in Houston, Texas, and how we can help the Malaysian government set up the infrastructure. And you know what I mean? So I'm just a big believer. Like you never know where the road's going to go, man. It's like, it's a river, man. Jump on it and go with the ride, and that's just my perception. So I would say those two people probably had the largest impact, and still to this day, you get other people that come in for a short time to help you with one thing or another. But I would say those two guys are very impactful. And they're still friends of mine today that I still reach out to when I need something.
Yeah, it's mentor. I tell a lot of my team that I called my coach every single day for 5 years. I mean, I was super, super accountable. I was super, super coachable. And I was a punk 21-year-old kid when I got into business, and 7 years later, I mean, I was completely financially independent. And so that, I am a huge believer of mentorship, accountability, coachability, following instruction. Obviously you're an airline pilot, so you have a lot of instructions that you have to go through every time you take that bad boy off the ground. And so there's no question you have been coachable, and you've followed systems, and you have followed mentors, you've followed coaches. And that's probably a good reason, a huge reason why you're probably more successful than most. And so why do most people fail? I mean, a lot of people that are watching right now or listening on the podcast, they are, they're kind of like, young entrepreneurs, small business owners. Why is it that you see so many small business owners go out of business, or small investors go out of business and just not make it?
That's a great question. And like you, I coach a lot of people, and I've done it around the world. So I've seen different businesses, and I forget the number, 95% fail within the first so many years. But I look at it a different question. I go, what are the 5% that succeed? What do they do? They're not smarter. They're not richer. They don't work harder. So they do something that's different. And what I've learned is the reason why many businesses fail, first of all, is ego and pride. Number one, I would say those two things. People have an ego and pride issue that they are the actual reason that businesses fail. They are their own demise, and they won't get out of their own way. The definition of a business, as I was taught by my mentor, is a commercial, profitable enterprise that runs without you and has a sale date. So if you break that sentence down, commercial, profitable enterprise, that kind of makes sense, right? Running without you, that means it's run by systems, policies, procedures, and structure. And the reason it has to have a sale date is if it doesn't have a date that actually happens, you don't have a saleable asset. If you don't have a saleable asset, that means that you are involved in it. And if you're involved in it, you don't have a business, you have a job. Nothing wrong with that, but call it what it is, okay? So when you look at the people that are successful, they follow a recipe, just like baking a cake, right? You don't put the frosting on and then put it in the oven. It's not going to work. There's a recipe for success, and there's a recipe for failure. Now, when I coach, one of the biggest challenges when I coach people is they don't hold themselves accountable. They want to hold everyone else accountable, but themselves. I tell people the fish stinks from the head down. If they see you not doing what needs to be done, not answering to accountability, not showing up in time, they're going to go, well, he doesn't do it. Why should I? So to answer your question, I think it's not an easy answer, right? The people that are successful, they are very good and masters at leverage. I've never met, and I'll be curious if you know what you think. I've never met anyone who has been successful in any sports or anything, and they said, I did it myself. Nobody helped me. I was all alone. I've never met that person. So when you look at the successful people, you go, okay, what did they do right? They leveraged people, knowledge, money, systems, time. They're masters at leveraging other people, which means they let their ego and pride take a back seat. And so what a lot of times businesses fail is they don't have an end date, meaning they don't have a destination. It's a dream. It's not written down. So it's in that someday file. And they don't know, it's not constructed to ever be successful. It's constructed to be a job, and a job is like a motivation, which is like a battery, and it drains over time. So it's not, I don't think it's I guess where I'm going, I don't think it's a one-part answer. I think it's one of those things that they just have to understand what is going on with themselves as leaders. Because I think that if I can expand a little bit, if that's okay. I think there's a challenge that people do not understand management versus leadership. So a leader is someone who inspires, they have a vision of where they're going, they cheerlead the team, and everybody looks to them as the shining light, the beacon of the company. And when they say, I am going up this hill, everybody's inspired to run after behind them and help them. The manager stands behind them and says, if you don't get up that hill, you're fired. I think a company needs both, but people think that leadership is management. They're managing, they're not leading. And you can't lead from behind. And so the reason they don't take the time, and this was one of my mentors taught me this, he's like, learn the difference between, you have to have both. But he said, you've got to learn the difference between the two, or you will never grow a business beyond you having a job.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, and I'll just jump back when you talked about ego. I tell people all the time that your ego will keep you broke. If you don't have it in check, it's going to keep you broke. And but the reason why I feel that way is because I see so many people not willing to submit to either a process or a leader or a mentor or a coach. And I just, maybe it was, it probably had a lot to do with the fact that I was young and 21 years old. I was like a piece of clay. And I remember telling my early mentors, like, look, I am a piece of clay. I'm young. I don't know anything about anything. Just mold me, teach me, coach me. I'm willing to roll up my sleeves. I'm willing to get dirty. I'm willing to do anything as long as it's legal, ethical, and moral. I'm willing to do it. Just tell me what I got to do, and I'll freaking do it. And because I wanted financial independence so bad, I just wanted to win so bad. I played sports. I was a baseball player growing up all my life, and I was always competitive. I was always an athlete. I always had the drive and kind of the will to win, the will to be somebody. And I knew that just like people wanted to be somebody. And so I just submitted. And I think because of that submission, things came a lot easier for me. People started to kind of follow me more readily because, like you said, I was following my leader and I was doing the things they were asking me to do. So they were watching me be that perfect example of what it was supposed to look like. I was recruiting the most people. I was writing the most sales. I was building the most teams. And so my people saw it. So I started to duplicate it. And because of that duplication, that's how the things started kind of moving in the right directions. And so let's talk about building teams. I know you've built a lot of teams, whether it be building a company or a business or, whatever it is that you're doing. What are some of the things that you've done to build, like to actually get people to follow you and to build a successful team of people?
That's a good question. And in our last company, before we sold it, 60% of it was run with virtual assistants in Mexico. So we had to get very, very good at running teams remotely. And so a lot of processes and procedures. So the first thing is understanding the objective of whatever that team is doing. That's the first thing. Having clearly defined processes and procedures of what that person is doing. So, and it doesn't matter if this person is in an office next door to you or they're in another country. It doesn't matter. If that person does not have a clear expectation and an executional role of what they're going to do, how can you expect them to succeed, right? You're not giving them the map. You're not giving them the destination. So when we had our company, we combined a lot of my knowledge of being an airline pilot. Airline pilots typically are pretty safe because planes don't crash that often, right? So we follow the rules and we have procedures of how we do things. So if you think of what we do, I can jump on a flight deck with any pilot. The company I fly for has 12,000 pilots. I can jump on a flight deck with another pilot and I know what I'm doing. He knows what he's doing. We're very, very clear on our roles. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do this today. Well, I'm going to do this. It's no. We're very, very clear and defined in what we do, which is why planes don't crash. So if you take that model and you take that concept, we did this with our company, property management company, which is very, very process and procedure driven. And we always did three things. Number one, we ran everything with a flow chart. Everything had a flow chart. So the person understood what the position was to begin with, where it was going to end, and who was involved in the process so that they could visually see this, because everybody learns different ways. From that systems procedure, the next thing we would do is we would create a systems manual. In that systems manual was it's same, and this is the same thing we do on the flight deck. In the systems manual is an expanded version, basically written out in detail what that means. So let's say I'll use property management as an example, where you say, accept new applicant. What does that mean? Exactly what does that mean? Well, when you go into the expanded version of the systems manual, that will tell you. Not only will it tell you, but there'll be screenshots showing you exactly what you should be looking at in the screens, and we'll do a video. And that'll be embedded in the manual to give you a video to walk you through the process. So when that's done, we created electronic checklists. Just like on the flight deck, the electronic checklists say onboard new or accept new applicant. When you check that off, you're saying, I know I did all the procedures that need to be done. The problem with a lot of people is you do checklists via rote. You go, okay, done. Okay, click, checked. It's not how checklists work. That's not how they work in the flight deck. That's not how they work to be effective. So one of the things that we've learned as we grew our company using checklist automation, every time it changes hands, that's a chance for error. That's a chance for mistake. So when you're building, so I'm kind of going a long way around here, but when you're building a team, you give ownership and accountability to that task, to that person, and it should stay with that person until they're relieved of it, and it never goes back to them. And then you KPI, key performance indicator, and you metric what they're doing. So in our company, we had thousands of metrics going on all the time. As leaders of the company, we looked at 5 to 7, because those 5 to 7 were derivatives and indicators of what the company was doing. We ran our company through KPIs and metrics, and it was very successful, just like a lot of other companies do. So I don't know if that answered your question, but you've got to give them clearly defined goals. You've got to give them the proper training, and then you've got to be able to clearly identify if they're doing the job correctly or not by KPI metrics, in my opinion, at least.
I love it. I mean, this is very, very similar to what, the reason why I've been financially free and have a lot of free time in my life is because of these things, Stephen. I mean, I built systems. I was a young punk kid. It was 1999 and just opened up my first office. And the first thing I did, and this was a long time ago, but I put everything on audio cassette tape so that I could hand these little tapes out to all my agents. And I said, learn the presentation. These are just, the second thing I did is I put together a systems manual, and I put all of the verbiage of the tapes, I put them in the manual so that way people could actually follow along and learn through scripts. Because some people like to read, some people like to watch videos. Then when we're able to start recording, we just started recording everything and systematizing everything. Now everything's on YouTube. Now all our little, videos. And again, I just love how you defined it, and you basically modeled it after, being an airline pilot, because to me, this is what I've been trying to get through to people for so many years. My life has had so much freedom because I don't have to sit down with every single person and spend all this time with every single person, because I could say, watch this video. If you want to know my presentation, watch this video. If you want to know how to recruit somebody, watch this video. If you want to know how to do an investment business, watch this video. Whatever it is, there's always a video, there's always a process, there's always a system for it. And it just made my life so much easier. And of course, now we have 48, 49 locations now, and everybody's independent. Nobody needs me anymore. Everybody does their own thing.
That's
and
the goal, right? You want to
their
work yourself out of a job.
That was the whole point. Yeah, I didn't, there was no point in me hanging out and having to teach these guys till I'm 80. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's been incredible. What you just said right now, I think, is just
And what,
absolutely
real quick,
incredible.
one thing that we took it a step further, and I don't know if you've done something like this, is, as you're hiring more staff and you're doing, I was a big believer in script training, role playing. I mean, you want to be a professional, act like it. You want to say, I'm a professional real estate agent. Then you know what? Then act like it and be a professional and train the way a professional athlete trains, right? So I was a big believer in scripting and role playing. And so what I would do is I would go to the teams, and we had 5 or 6 different teams in Mexico, in the US. And I would say, okay, give me 3 problems, each team, that you guys could not answer. 3 situations that whether it was the salespeople, whoever it was. And then I would say, what do you want the outcome to be? So they would tell me, and then I would make a video out of it. So then I made an academy, and I started making an education. So now I have an FAQ that we ended up putting up on Bradley's Lightspeed and all this stuff. But we ended up creating a whole academy for this, because it's like, I don't want to have to keep telling them, this is how you do it. Oh, that person's not here anymore. Shit, man, now I got to do this class again. It's like, okay, let me just figure out all the problems. There's only so many challenges, right? I mean, well, in one quarter, I think it was a quarter, I did 500 videos from different departments. And I was every week, man, they were just, every department was giving me 3. So I was doing like 15 or 20, 30 a week. And I was just hammering through them. But then we had them all, organized. It was like maintenance, sales, leasing. They had all the answers now. So if a new hire came on and he was in the maintenance division, we're like, here's how you answer challenges. There you go. So that was another way that we streamlined our business.
Oh gosh, I love that, man. I am like so loving your stuff, Steven. Hey everybody, we're with Steven Rozenberg. This dude's an airline pilot, investor, author, speaker, you name it. And this has been such a pleasure. Steven, what's the 80-20 rule mean to you?
That's a good question. To me, the 80-20 rule is, I think 100%. People are in an instant gratification world. Everybody thinks they're important, whether they are or not. They think they're important. So I think everything has to be handled and done, but it doesn't have to be by you. So I think that right person, right seat is very, very important when you own a company. So what we used to do is we'd say, okay, we'd have 100 calls come in. 80 of them are stupid, right? How do I pay my rent? But they have to be answered. But it doesn't have to be answered by you being a property manager or whatever your role is in the company. Leverage that to a lower level position, right? Now, we all know the 80 Pareto's principle is 80% of your money is made by 20% of the people and all those things. But I think that 80-20 rule is relevant. It's probably even more now, I would say more 90-10 or, but I think everything is important at different levels. I don't think anything is not important. It just may not be important for me to deal with. So I'm a big believer, I've learned from my mentors, using the word no. No, I'm not taking that call. Now, I don't say no. I just look at other solutions to say, well, why don't you take the call? That's like me saying no, but I go, look, we're going to start routing the calls to you and you can handle that because that's now your job. That's me saying no. That's part of the 80-20 rule so that I can focus on the 20% that I can be the most productive and I have the best use of handling.
Yeah, I think when you're building teams and you're growing an organization, you've got to be real careful with your time. I mean,
absolutely.
I see so many people, so many really talented people, by the way, they spend all of their time with the wrong people. They're trying to, I think it's really important that people understand you cannot make someone into somebody they do not want to become. People are going to be people. And if you're going to, have a life where you're dealing with people and you're recruiting and you're training, and you're developing and you're growing leaders, some people just are not going to do the things that need to be done so that they can go to the next level. And so our job is, at least I've always felt like it was my job, almost like a professional coach. And I always thought, I'm out there recruiting and looking for the right people. There's going to be a lot of people we're going to bring in the organization through the time, but I want to find the right people and I want to spend all my time like that one coach where you see that one player at that high school, and man, you start recruiting them, and you're like, this kid's the right kid, and you go and have dinner with the parents, and you recruit them, and you do everything, and you bring this stud in. That's what I am always looking for. And look, if he decides that he doesn't want to be that stud, if he decides he doesn't want to be that guy, well then, hey, I'll just kind of, stop spending a whole lot of time with him, maybe delegate his stuff out to somebody else and let somebody else train him, so I can go focus my energy, my 20% of my life, finding those right people. Good stuff though, man. Hey, let's talk about real estate for briefly, because you're into real estate and it's your life. And so tell us about your first big real estate deal that you're pretty proud of.
I would say the first deal that I'm proud of, I've got many that I'm not, but we'll go with the ones that I am. That's good. It was an apartment deal I did. It was my first apartment here in Houston, Texas. I did and the reason I'm proud of it, it was a good deal. We made money, we sold it, all that was good, but it created a partnership with me and my business partner that allowed us to buy further real estate together, but we built a multi-million-dollar business together. And he and I went on a lifetime journey, basically, of becoming new people. So when I talk about mentors, Marshall, my business partner was right alongside of me the whole time. And it was because of that purchase that we met and we started this journey. And had I never purchased that property or gone and did that deal, probably would have never met him and probably wouldn't be here today. I'd probably be an employee flying an airplane. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's so I think, I think we all have tracks in our lives that we don't know that we're following. And I think that was a track that was it was a blessing for me, because it's given me the life of my dreams. I have the life that I love having. And because of decisions I made and saying yes to very scary, very unknown things, and very, doing things that I didn't want to do and I didn't feel comfortable, and I still did them. And because of that, I have the life that I love having, and I could thank him and obviously myself and other people for taking me on this journey.
And so, what's one of the mistakes that you made along the way?
How much time you got? I would say the biggest mistake I made is I am a very, very aggressive, ready, shoot, aim kind of guy. I mean, if they say, hey, why don't we run up? I'm already running. Like I don't even know if it's the right hill. I'm already going. I'm like, let's do this, and that's not always the best thing. And so the biggest mistake I had when I started buying real estate after we sold the apartment complex is real estate and business has an interesting way of explaining to you without any discrimination or preconceived thoughts that you're not as smart as you think you are. And when it comes back like a wrecking ball to clarify how smart you are or not when you make a mistake. And so when I was purchasing real estate after we sold the apartment complex, I started buying a lot of properties with no goal. I had no end destination for buying these. People said they were good deals, and I trusted them, and I bought these deals. They were good deals. They just weren't good deals for me because I didn't have an end goal. And so there's something to be said about slowing down to speed up. And I think there's some things that you need to have. I think in this business, especially, there's no rule book that says, hey, Steve, this is your manual for life. This is how you will be successful in real estate in Houston, Texas. That doesn't exist. You have to create your own. And if you don't create your own, nobody cares. Nobody cares if I go bankrupt or I make $1 million a year. Nobody cares. So I think the challenge is if you don't care, and I tell people that I coach, I go, look, I can't want it more than you. I can't do the work for you. If you don't care, I guarantee you, I'm not going to care because my life is fine. My life's not going to change. If you don't make those calls and you don't do those things, my life will not change tomorrow. I still will have a good life. I don't know how your life will be because you're not doing the work. So I'm a big believer in doing the work and doing what needs to be done.
And as far as the, I wanted to get your take on the real estate ban or the eviction ban that's going on, because I heard you talk a little bit about that, and I wanted to get your thoughts. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's big government getting in the way of commerce. I really do. I think If you're going to do that, you got to make it fair for both sides. If tenants don't have to pay rent, owners shouldn't have to pay the mortgages. Unfortunately, the lobbyists don't think that way, and they're the ones who control government, essentially. Not to get political, but we don't play in a fair system. But no one ever said life was fair. No one ever said that this industry was fair. I think that what's going to happen is you are going to see a lot of people that did not set their businesses up correctly are going to get that wrecking ball coming through their life, and it's going to happen. It is an inevitable market correction that was delayed. So I think we are still going to see. I don't want to say it's a crash. I don't know, but I do think just like look, we're never surprised when winter comes, right? When the seasons change and winter comes, we're not like, wow, this is odd. When there's a market correction and real estate changes, you shouldn't be surprised. Just like in any industry, it's going to change. It never stays the same. So I think all it did is it just prolonged the inevitable of this correction that's going to happen. It could have made it less. It could make it more. I don't think we know. So I don't think it's right, but that's not my role. My role is to look at it and say, okay, is there a business strategy that I can capitalize on this? At the end of the day, is there a way for me to capitalize on this in business? And I think the answer is by educating yourself, being ready and being poised, that when deals are prepared and you know what your goal is, that's when you take action. And that's me.
So the future of real estate, I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, the next year, 2 years out, what would be your gut? What's your gut?
Yeah, my gut says it's not going to be like a balloon popping. It's going to be them just deflating air out of the balloon. I don't think the government is going to allow a crash given everything. And we've seen that the government is not afraid to pump money into an economy. And I think we'll see that. I think they're going to soften the blow. I don't think you'll hear about it. I don't think it'll be as cinematic as it was in 2008. I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to correct because you can't keep it propped up forever. I just think they're going to do everything they can to put Band-Aids on this to let it re-correct on the backside without us seeing it.
And I mean, it comes down to interest rates. I mean, they're supposedly they were supposed to keep interest rates low until the end of 2022, but now they're saying they want to kind of bring that timeline a little bit closer. And so, I think that's the indicator. I have a feeling that's going to be, if there is a little prick or there is going to be a bubble that's going to pop, it's going to be the interest rates. If they lay down that hammer, again, your thoughts.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, there's 8 million owners in forbearance right now for their mortgages. There's 20 million to 30 million renters that are behind on their rent. To assume that they're going to go ahead and pay their rent. I mean, what world do you live in? You must be the mayor of fairyland. It's just not going to happen. So I think the reality is a lot of owners are going to be stuck with properties that they can't afford and that they're going to have to sell. And it's price and demand. We're already seeing the market is not as astronomically, in the other atmosphere like it was. It's starting to settle and it'll come down. So I think the interest rates is the beginning indicator of that happening. So yeah, I agree.
Man, this is awesome, Stephen. This is probably another one of my favorite podcasts. I think me and you, honestly, could go another hour.
For sure.
Easy. Man, what a pleasure to meet you. I want you to talk about your book. I want you to talk about your investor boot camp. I want the audience to follow you on Instagram. So give us all your handles and wherever else we can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So I wrote a book, Failing My Way to Millions, and it is actually, it's this book right here. And it's actually I'll send one to you. Give me your address. I'll send you one. It's actually my story of going through being an airline pilot, getting furloughed 9/11, building a business, making all the mistakes, and just, the power of perseverance, really. And so you can go to my website, steverozenberg.com, ROZENBERG. You can follow me on Instagram, Rozenberg Steve, it's with a Z, or Facebook. YouTube, I put out a new video every single day on my YouTube channel. So I'm a big believer in education. Yeah, I've got a boot camp coming up in Houston, Texas, September 18th and 19th. If you go to stevesbootcamp.com, you can see it there. I have another one in Florida, October 16th and So you can see me in Florida, October 16th and 17th. Probably be doing one in the West Coast, maybe with Marshall soon. So I get around. So if you Google me and you look me up, I'm out there. I'm very approachable. People ask me questions all the time, and I actually do answer them. So I will answer your questions. You know, you just want to know something. If you follow me, you'll see some cool destinations that I go to. I'm always traveling, posting pictures, videos of cool flight deck pictures and sunrises, sunsets. And I think it's good to share. I think it's good to share the journey. We're all on a journey. And I think it's good to humanize yourself and show that we're all human. We make mistakes. We have good days. We have bad days. No one's Superman. And we're all trying to be better than we were yesterday.
Man, I really applaud you for all of your success. And you really, I mean, I can read people pretty well, and you're a good dude, man. And so if you are in California, Southern California, and you want to go have dinner, lunch, breakfast, coffee, you name it, you make sure you hit me up, and let's hopefully we can keep the relationship alive. But tell Marshall I said hi. With that said, everybody, make sure that you go follow Steve, and let's blow his DMs up right now. Make sure you go check out his YouTube channel. Leave him lots of comments, and make sure you subscribe to his channel. And look, if you get a chance to go, take a look at his book or buy his book, that's always really appreciated. And you know how we feel about personal development here. It's very, very important that you continue to grow your mind, because ultimately you got to continue to dream bigger, get after it. But most importantly, make sure that you do it now. God bless you. We'll see you at the top.